Oh, hi. Hey, Hillary, smell my finger. Welcome to Creepy and Weird. I am your host. I'm the best in the West. I'm a beast in the East. And when it comes to being a dummy, yeah, I do it the least. I'm the real deal Holyfield. I'm the man, the myth, the legend, the hippie. My name is Hippie Steve. And thank you for watching this first episode of the Creepy and Weird podcast. This is going to be an introductory podcast more than anything. I will talk about a subject towards the end, so please don't just click off right now, because it will get interesting, I do promise. But I would be remiss if I didn't start this with paying homage, I guess, to a couple people. First is the man behind the scenes, the man behind the curtain. He's the man with the power, the man of the hour. He's the Wizard of Oz. He is my boy, B-Mac on the attack. He's making this whole video possible, and without him, I wouldn't be here. So thank you very much. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't pay homage to the late, great Art Bell. Anybody who does podcasts, that especially are paranormal, hint, hint, this will be a paranormal podcast, so that's creepy and weird. We wouldn't be here right now. No paranormal podcast would be here right now if it wasn't for the pioneering work of Art Bell. I think most paranormal podcasters will admit that. The ones who don't, do your homework, brothers, because, yeah, you'll figure out you're not just wrong, but dead wrong. So, with that out of the way, kind of a breakdown of this podcast. This podcast has actually been in the works for quite some time. Me and B-Mac were sitting around an old campfire one day, doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then the epiphany came to me. And I said, hey, B-Mac, you know what the world needs now more than anything? And he said, what? I said, another podcast. Because, social media isn't already overly saturated with podcasts right now, but I do promise to the best of my ability to make this podcast as different and entertaining as I possibly can. And so with that, let's go forward. So what is creepy and weird? Obviously, I mentioned we are going to be talking about the paranormal. We're also going to be talking about stuff like Bigfoot, which I guess is kind of paranormal, but I don't want to get into the whole semantics on that. It's, whatever. But we'll also be talking about some interesting people like Aleister Crowley, Terrence McKenna, Robert Anton Wilson, just to name a few. It just doesn't stop there. We're going to ride this train of the absurd until the wheels fall off, baby. So I hope you all join me. And with that being said, let's discuss the matter at hand, which is, the subject of this first podcast. I know I said it's going to be introductory, but we're also going to talk about something that was actually, it's a true story. It happened to me. So, yeah, kind of emotional talking about this, but it was over 30 years ago, so I guess it's time. We will be talking about the phenomenon known as a Ouija board. Now, Ouija boards are kind of an odd thing because most people think that Ouija boards are kind of this parlor trick, four drunk friends sit around a table at 4 o'clock in the morning. One guy says, Earl, I know you're fucking with that thing. Stop it. And, they flip the board and game's done. But these are real things, as I will tell you towards the end of this. It's not a joke. I'm sure people do play tricks on other people with that. I mean, I'm sure it's been done to me. I'm sure it's been done to everybody. But there is a seriousness to this, and these things should not be taken lightly. In fact, I think it's kind of weird, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Ouija boards used to be sold in children's stores, which is just crazy if you think about it. I know they look like a board game. It's like, hey guys, you want to play Monopoly? You want to play Candyland? Or do you want to play with an Ouija board? Sure, let's talk to the dead. What's the worst that can happen? So yeah, if you're a kid, definitely do not play with it. And if you're an adult, use your best judgment. Probably best to bring exorcist with you while you're doing it, because, yeah, strange things do happen. Actually, Art Bell of all people, had a very scary experience with an Ouija board. In fact, it was so scary to him that he would never tell the story. He literally took that story to his grave, so we'll never know what happened there. So that's, before I get into my story, I just want to make sure you understand that, you might be sitting here snickering, saying I'm full of crap, but you can think whatever you want, man. Doesn't matter. These things are real, and they do have very, very negative consequences. My story with the Ouija board starts back in the mid-90s. My mom bought an Ouija board. I think she bought it because my great-grandmother at that time just passed away, and I think it was her way of trying to communicate with her. So I remember sitting there with my mom, and we'd be messing around with the Ouija board. She was trying to talk to my great-grandmother. I couldn't tell you if there was any success with that or not, but, really, when I would do it, my mom would go to work. I had a single mother, so it was just me at home. And I would, of course, when you're a kid, you want to do what your parents do. So I would go into the closet, dust off the old Ouija board, and just start messing around with it. And of course, I wasn't being malicious. I was like 7 or 8 years old at this time. So I'm not trying to summon the devil or anything like that. I'm trying to summon the things that I was pretty much learning at school. I actually tried to summon the ghost of Abraham Lincoln. He didn't show up. Honest Abe, my ass. And believe it or not, I did actually try to summon the ghost of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. That did not work as well, which in hindsight was probably a good thing. Can you imagine if that worked? It'd be like that scene from Jurassic Park where the guy's trying to run from the T-Rex and he goes in the bathroom, sits on the john, and then gets devoured alive. That would not have been a good thing. So, and that was pretty much the brunt of my experimentation with the Ouija board. I just said, hey, this thing doesn't seem like it's working. Put it back in the closet. Didn't even think about the damn thing. About 2 months later, I'm in the bathroom, seeing a man about a dog, and got done doing my business, went to the sink, washing my hands. And of course, when you're at the sink, there's a mirror right in front of the sink. And behind me, there was a doorway to enter the bathroom, which was open. So I'm washing my hands, looking down, and as soon as I looked up in the mirror, I saw what looked to be my mom, soaking wet, looking at me in a very sinister fashion, lunging at me. And this was so real that I turned around to defend myself, only to find nobody was there. Now, I hate to keep beating a dead horse here, but I was only like 7 or 8 years old. That's a lot to process for a kid that young. And what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go to my mom and say, hey, Mom, guess what happened? I was in the bathroom and I saw you in the mirror soaking wet about to attack me, and when I turned around, you disappeared. As open-minded of a person as my mom was, I think she probably would have taken me to a doctor. They would have pumped me full of pills, and then I'd be trying to sell you insurance right now instead of trying to make a podcast. So, it was probably good I kept my mouth shut at that time. And I think I actually had a lot of repressed memories with that as well, because I always thought that was it as far as the weird stuff, at least in this apartment that we lived at. But, looking back at it, about 5 years ago, I started thinking, I'm like, there was some other weird stuff that I didn't even think might have correlated to the Ouija board. For instance, I'd be sitting there playing my video games, playing some Super Mario, and by myself, and I would just hear something slightly whisper my name. I'd go, Steven. And I look around, nothing. So I keep playing my game, taking those mushrooms and killing the turtles, and then all of a sudden I hear, Steven. I turn around again, nobody. And my mom's boyfriend, who we lived with at the time, he was a very playful person. He liked to play pranks. And so I always kind of attributed it to him. And there was times where I'd hear that, and I would go, hey, Lonnie, that was his name. Hey, Lonnie, quit messing around. I know that's you. And nobody ever came out to reveal themselves that, they were messing with me. Another thing that actually happened was, and this happened several times, I'd be laying in bed at night and my bed would start shaking. Now, keep in mind, I lived in Los Angeles back then. This is in the mid-90s when earthquakes like the Northridge or the Landers earthquake were happening. So having your bed shake at night really wasn't that big of a deal. But looking back at it, it's just like that, along with my mom in the mirror and hearing the whispering of my name. There was some weird stuff happening. And luckily, we actually moved out of that apartment, I don't know, a year later. And it didn't seem to follow me. At least I didn't think it followed me. So if anybody's living at that apartment now and is having weird experiences, I'm sorry. I was just a kid. Blame my mom, because she's the one that started the whole damn thing. But it does sound like the story ends there, doesn't it? But actually it doesn't. It took a long time, but stuff would start to rear its ugly head again, starting when I was a teenager. And actually going into my 20s and now my 30s. And I'm 37 years old now. So you can imagine that's a long, long time. And there's a lot to say on that matter. But I really only have so much time for these podcasts right now. I want to make longer podcasts in the future. But until then, I do have to cut it off here. Obviously, there's going to be a part 2 to this. Maybe even a part 3. As well as other podcasts, subjects for podcasts that I do. They're not going to be just a one and done, because you can only cover so much stuff in this short amount of time. So before I go, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. You know how it all goes. Click the thing, do the ding, spread the word. This is a grassroots podcast. We are not receiving any money for doing this. This is just me and old good BMAC on the attack, trying our best to do this. So however you could support us is great. Just spread the word, and it will be greatly appreciated. And before I leave, I want to leave you with these words. First and foremost, embrace the absurd. And to quote the great George Clinton, my favorite president ever of these United States, free your mind and your ass will follow. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.